Welcome to Heart Collaborations, where we explore the heart of wellness, mental and emotional well-being, relationships, personal passions, and thriving parenthood. Hi, I'm Annette.
And I'm Anita. Collectively, we have over 50 years in the educational and mental health arenas. Whether you're looking for information, personal stories, or just a place to feel seen and heard, you're in the right place. Join us as we dive into conversations that inspire, empower, help you grow, and add a little laughter to your life.
Hey, we want to welcome you to Heart Collaborations. Once again, we are so glad that you are here with us. And, we're right at the beginning of July, and we've just had 4th of July weekend. I don't know what you did, but I watched some fireworks via the TV, okay? Yeah, I didn't want to get out with the crowds and all that kind of stuff, but I do love watching the Macy fireworks show from New York. And wow, I've watched it for several years now, and it was incredible. I mean, it's really awesome stuff. Have you ever watched it?
No, we normally just it's a lounging day for us, watching the fireworks. Normally our neighbors have their own fireworks. So we just watch their fireworks.
Nice.
The week before, our town puts up like a big display, and so we get to watch those too. So yeah.
All right.
But I know it's the beginning of July, and I know a lot of people going through things, especially in Hunt, Texas. So we want to just say that our thoughts and prayers are with you, and that we are acknowledging what's going on.
Yeah, I'm so glad that we took a second to do that. Right, a lot of hurting and a lot of pain going on, and so our thoughts and prayers are there, holding space for them. Yeah. So let's go ahead and jump into our topic.
Let's do it.
All right. So today we're talking about something that we've all felt at some time or another. And even if we haven't spoken it out loud, and it is this feeling of emptiness, this feeling of void, this kind of anguishing feeling.
This one little thing that you're missing.
Yeah, maybe? Yeah. It may feel like a little thing. It may feel like a big thing, right?
Yeah.
So like it can come and it can be like a fleeting thought, or it can be something that's more pervasive and you're just carrying that weight.
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever felt like that?
No, I have not.
Okay. I have felt like that. I have felt like that. And if I were to give it a word, I would say that for me, when I feel that way, I would put the word loneliness with it. And there could be 5 people living in my house, but I still might feel that feeling. So I have felt it before. For me, I know that it's a kind of temporary thing. I might feel it for an hour, or might feel it for 2 hours. And so I don't become real unsettled with it, because I know that it's not something that's going to hang over my head. Right. But there may be people that experience it for longer amounts of time. That void, that emptiness, like you said, something's missing.
Yeah. Normally what people tell me that is missing is maybe interaction from other people, or, belonging is another thing that creates, not feeling lonely is belonging.
Right. And I think, sometimes you can have lots of people in your life, but you might be going through a time where you're missing some type of intimacy, possibly the feeling of knowing and being known. Yeah.
Okay. If you say so.
So, when we were doing the research for the Anxious Generation book study, we did the 4 episodes on the anxious generation. I'm so glad we did that. But when I was doing research for that, I came across, and I fell in love with it. I fell in love with it. But I fell in love with The Parting Prescription for America by the former Surgeon General, Vivek Murthy. And he is he has served under the Obama administration. He served under the Trump administration. He served under the Biden administration. So there should not be any type of political alliance associated with him. I don't think of it in that way at all.
Oh, no. He has such a heart. I mean, when I first read, I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, just the introduction of it was all about him growing up and how he had grown up in India and what he thought about really what mattered in life.
Right.
I think for so many people, it's like success. It's like, are you successful and how do you define success? Right. But I think with him, he really dug in deep and was like reaching out even to people all over the world.
Right.
Well, in the United States.
Yeah.
For his paper, for his book.
Yeah. So he has written a book for sure. And this particular was just kind of like almost like a personal essay. Could have been a little different, but it's out there. It was done in January 2025. I would highly encourage everyone to just access that on the internet and read it. It is interesting. It is moving. It is thought-provoking. And I thought this guy could have picked any topic that he wanted to, end his term with and use his platform to say to the American people. And I thought he used it wisely.
Oh, yeah. I mean, any thought he hangs out with Dr. Jonathan Haidt? I mean, any chances of that, right? I mean, because I'm like, their stuff is kind of so similar in the fact that how technology has made us, isolate into the silo. But also when he talks about community, and Dr. Jonathan Haidt talked about community, it's like,
there are a lot of parallels, right?
Yeah. And we've got the answer. We've got Dr. McCarthy. He talked about Murthy. He talked about the evidence, that we have, and yet why are we not using it more?
Right.
Right.
So when he traveled around the nation, what do you remember about some of the things that he said people were sharing with him?
Well, I know one of the studies that he talked about was those the young Yale students, that are in college that were taking a little survey, and about a third of them said that they were lonely, and that struck me because I'm like, the other research in one of the podcasts of Ambiguous Loss, we talked about like loneliness and friendship,
right?
And I'm like, if it's a 1/3 for college students, and they are in the masses of finding their people with all these organizations and clubs. And as you get older as an adult, you have less of that.
Right.
Unless you are intentional about it, right?
I know he said that, and another statistic that I remember is, he said that 1/3 of adults, and he didn't say like an age limit, right? But then he said 50% of youth, and so the younger, right? From I guess 24 down or college age down, right? 50% of them report loneliness being a significant feeling that they experience. So one of the things that I remember Dr. Murthy talking about is how people felt like they were alone to carry the weight. Like they didn't have anyone to depend on.
I know, that was wild to me.
And so that was an echoing sentiment or feeling that people were a top concern.
He also talked about how people are volunteering less. It was like we're at a 30% of volunteering, and when you think about it, I mean, 30%, at least 70% of people like struggling or doing things on their own. Especially I was thinking about when I read they came to me about Meals on Wheels, because there's a lot of elderly that we have, and how, and I know because of my dad,
right.
A lot of them, they don't want to leave their home.
Right.
They want to stay in their home. And so it's kind of like, okay, what can we do with those people, the elderly that are in
that
their
are
home.
isolated. For all different kinds of reasons, right?
Yeah.
Maybe there are physical health reasons. Maybe there are mental health reasons.
Yeah.
Maybe they just don't have access to drive, and so
Right.
they're limited.
Right.
So, as Dr. and you pointed it out, you said that, he began by talking about his family. And let's talk a little bit about the formula that he says he learned from his family.
Oh, okay. He talked about, growing up, his parents, they showed up for people that were sick. They showed up for people like in their religious circle. So there were multiple circles that he talked about, which I liked. So he had a lot of things, he talked about how his dad had lost, I don't remember, it was his mother when he was 10. And how, uncles, aunts, people from their congregation or church, stood up and kind of, they were surrogate parents.
Right.
And so he talked about how he remembers, his dad, against all odds, became a doctor, and he said his dad came to the United States and, it was only him. And so he found out that, his patients were his community first. And then he, I guess, started having other communities,
right,
as he grew older. But he talked about how fulfillment was in building relationships, service, and having purpose.
Right.
Like the purpose to go and take a casserole to somebody because they're sick, right? Kind of gives you purpose. So he talked about that.
I was thinking yesterday morning, I'm a big pickleball player, not meaning I'm a great pickleball player, but an avid, I love it, right? And one of the reasons I love it is because it's such an opportunity to build community. And so I played several different places. And I started thinking about how, when we're talking finances, we believe in diversification, right? Same thing with relationships. A key to really having a healthy, relationships is to diversify. And so, I have one group of friends that I play outdoor pickleball with, another group of friends that I play indoor pickleball with, right, at several different locations. And that's a type of diversification. And I know that you've heard me talk about in relationships how it's important to build a safety net, and how, when I was younger, I put all my energy into that first love, right? And then and fell and hurt my knees and realized, oh my gosh, you got to have a safety net. And so
that was in a previous podcast.
I know. I gotta go. That's a cliffhanger, right? Go back and check out the other podcast, right? But so we need that safety net. We need that diversification in relationships. And you mentioned that. So you mentioned the components of that triad. So Dr. Murthy talks about how in the United States, there's been a focus, and we've become a great country because of this focus, but there's this focus on the triad of success, right? So let's talk a little bit about the triad of success, and then we can, put it up against, or not against, but we can also talk about the triad of fulfillment, which is the components that you quickly mentioned.
Yeah, you know what? When I thought about success in it,
you thought about
younger,
me? You thought about
younger.
me?
No, when I was younger. Well, I guess maybe college age. I don't know, but I thought about Madonna.
Okay,
because one, she's one of my favorite artists, but two, she's got wealth. She's very prestigious,
right?
And she's known, like she's got a lot of power.
Right.
So I think the triad, when I thought about the triad of success, I thought about Madonna.
Okay. Yeah, I could see that.
That's what I thought about.
I could see that. And I think that, when we think about who is it that we think of when we think about success, people that have been successful, oftentimes, because the triad of success has to do with wealth, has to do with power, and has to do with prestige. And so when we think of that, when we are looking at that ladder of success, oftentimes we think of the celebrities, we think of the CEOs, we think of those kinds of people, right?
Yeah.
And somehow some of those other really people that have done incredible things in this world. Mother Teresa is an example. Lots of other examples, right? But they don't so much come to mind.
No, they don't.
Right?
No, they don't.
Yeah.
They should, but they don't.
They should, but they don't. Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Look at all the work Mother Teresa has done.
Right.
You know.
And I mean,
there was another one that he mentioned. I can't remember, but Martin Luther King. I mean, like,
right.
You know, another very successful person that, you know, led with love, and that's what he talks about too later on. Is
right.
The leading with love,
right?
Because he talked about the 3 core things for fulfillment, you know, which are relationships, service, and purpose. But he said the main core is love, leadership with love.
Right.
Is what he talked about.
Right. Yeah. You know, in terms of that model of success that everybody is, for the most part, striving at, no matter what you do, most people are. But what we find is that even the people who have the most wealth, have the most prestige, have the most power, are still talking and dealing and feeling with, you know, sometimes that agonizing feeling of void, of something missing that we've been talking about.
So the other day I was scrolling through TikTok and there was a young lady and she was doing her little recording and she was talking about how she left the corporate world. And her reasonings were, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so valid. So she's a young lady in her 20s, realized that she was making a lot of money, but she didn't have the time to socialize. She didn't have the time to do things even with family. She was always working. And so she took one vacation and that turned into, she came back and resigned from her job. And she decided to just do whatever she could, you know, because she thought she wanted her time instead of the money.
Right.
She said, I am more rich hanging out with my friends, you know, and spending time with family than I am working the corporate ladder and missing out on living life.
Right.
So, yeah.
And, you know, I'm going to use the word prescription as well, since I'm in good company with Dr. Murthy. But, you know, I'm not in any way trying to prescribe what's right for someone's life. And in terms of, I'm not asking anyone to give up their ambition either. Because I believe you can have wealth, you can have power, you can have prestige, and you can do incredible things with it. We have many, many people
Look at Bon
who have done
Jovi.
that.
Look at Bon Jovi.
Bon Jovi. Speak to me.
I love Bon Jovi.
Sing me a line from one of his songs and I'll listen.
So, okay, let me just tell you about Bon Jovi. You know, Bon Jovi also has wealth, power, and prestige. But, you know, I've watched him because he was one of my favorites also growing up, you know, and he gives a lot of money back to the community. He has a lot of things that he does in the community that he gives back. So to me, that's when you think about, you know, having ambition and being successful is good. And it's good that he's also giving back.
Right.
So, yeah.
So I think the point is that you can have those things and still feel that void. And so what do? How do we, if that's your inclination to seek that, you know, triad of success, then how do you add to that so that you kind of insulate yourself so that, yes, you can be wealthy, you can be powerful, you can be prestigious,
get back.
But still,
you got to get back. You know, I was thinking, as I was reading this, I was thinking also some of AA, you know, in AA, in order to stay clean, you know, you also get back.
Right.
So there's a lot of programs that we don't even realize that have the same concept of, you know, building community. And when you talked about building community, and I think about AA, is coming as you are and being accepted for who you are. And that's what he said community is.
Yeah, I remember him talking about that so vividly. It really spoke. He talked about how surrounding yourself with people, be it family, friends, associates, that you don't have to do anything special to be valued, you know, to be loved. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to do anything special. You just are. And so that's what we're looking for. So let's dive into that triad of fulfillment. And there are three, components of that: relationship,
service, and purpose.
So let's kind of maybe define and talk a little bit about each one of those. So when we talk about relationships, we're talking about, and I guess, kind of like an overarch is community, right?
Yeah.
So, but when we're talking about relationships, we're talking about knowing and being known, having some intimacy,
belonging,
acceptance. Yes. And yeah, so how do we make that happen?
I mean, it's easy as getting to know your neighbors. Like,
you say easy.
I'm shameful. I'm shameful because I don't know I know two of my neighbors, but I don't know the people across the street, but I know my two on the side. But we keep ourselves so busy.
Yeah.
We
do. And I like the neighborhood that I live in, many of the driveways are in the back. So people don't even really see each other coming and going, where if your driveway's in the front, there's a little bit more chance that you'll get a chance to wave at the neighbor, say hi. My neighbor across the street, she has this black dog. I love this dog. I don't even know this dog's name. Okay. But this dog, every day when she takes it walking, he grabs the biggest stick he can find and he puts that stick in his mouth and he carries that stick. I mean, the stick is like this big and he carries this stick, all the way on that walk. But, so, finding little ways to make connection, is important. Some of the things that have put us in a bind, in terms of building a relationship and communication. And you mentioned one earlier. We talked a lot about this because it's important.
Technology.
Yeah. Technology. Technology can be such a blessing. And it can even help and build for people that are really isolated. By the way, let me mention this organization that I found out doing research on this. It's called Doro, Doro.
Oh, yeah.
And it's an organization, I believe it started in 1968, I believe, in New York, in Brooklyn. And it was started by social work students, graduate social work students out of the University of Columbia. And they started working with the elderly so that they could combat that isolation and loneliness. And it's become a very big organization. They have some live events if you're in Brooklyn area that you can go to, but I want you to go to their website, Doro, Doro, and look at that. But I think the coolest thing I saw for me, since I don't live in Brooklyn, was all the online events that you can do through Zoom. And they're not cheesy things. They're like, it could be chair yoga. Okay. Or it can be art. It can be theater. It can be book studies. It can be discussion groups, all kinds of things. And so, if you are, on that part of life where you're a little bit older, you might check out Doro, especially, and the best thing that we're looking for is in terms of connection is face to face, because we know that dopamine lingers from face to face interactions longer than it does, some type of digital.
But something is better than nothing.
Yes, I was going to say, and way better than nothing. It's a great resource. So if you can complement your face to face, great. But if you are in a situation for whatever reason where it's harder to get out and enjoy, community in that way, go check out their website and begin to benefit from that opportunity of community right there.
Yeah.
So we talked about how technology has kind of caused these silos of, not connecting as much. You can even be in the same room with people and yet nobody's connecting, right?
It's on the phone.
Everybody's got their own screen.
Yeah.
So, we've got to acknowledge that is hurting us. And what are some things that we can do to, change that? So relationship building, and then
I was thinking that, I mean, you could do a lot of things for relationships, like even at work, get to know somebody new, find even if you have an interest, there are so many things now that you can meet people, especially through Facebook or Instagram, that you can easily have conversations. There's a lot of meetups, too. So just getting yourself out there is the big thing.
Right. And, relationships, it's a buffer to stress. It helps, it shows up with benefits in our physical health, and it shows up with benefits in our mental health. So,
yeah.
And like you said, our workplaces can create cultures where, interaction is important and relationship is important. We can invest in social infrastructures. So, some communities do a great job of having senior citizen centers.
I'll tell you who. There's some apartments where it's amazing what they've done with their clubhouse. They have different agencies come in and they service the young people that live there. So they have like reading literacy programs that go in, writing programs, social emotional programs that go in there. And it's amazing that an apartment complex offers this.
Right. That is awesome. And, rec centers. Rec centers are great.
Yeah.
I know that sometimes that's a little bit harder in rural areas. And so I see churches stepping in rural areas to provide that opportunity and space for community. A lot of churches will have a gym, or they'll have, during the summer, youth camps and different things like that. So find out where is a meeting space that you can be a part of and begin enjoying that community. So another area is service.
Service. Yeah, service.
Let's talk about that a little bit.
Wow. Well, I think...
What is service?
When I think about service, I think about serving others, but volunteer service, and I know that sometimes that can be time consuming, but there's also other things that we can do even if we don't have the time. I was thinking of even, I know for like elementary teachers, just cutting out little projects for the kids, volunteering to do that for them, volunteering to work in the library, something that's not too time consuming, but also something that fulfills us and gives us purpose.
Yeah, definitely. Your local school is a place that you can volunteer and be a help for sure.
Yeah.
There, in terms of service can be something that is formal, or it can be something that is informal, where you're seeing needs, of a friend that maybe, has had a surgery. And so taking a meal to them would be helpful, or picking up their kid from school or something of that sort, but looking for opportunities for service. One of the service organizations, and, I've been wanting to do this for a while, so I just need to make it happen, but, is Habitat for Humanity.
That's a great one. Yeah.
And I want to do one of those builds, right? Where I know my church participates in some builds, and I can get out there with a hammer and nail and some saws and do some
do it.
Do some stuff.
You gotta get out there and do it.
Let's see. I thought of another one. So, one that I've been a little bit a part of is, in terms of how our communities are using dogs, as like pet assisted therapy dogs, or, service dogs. For example, I know that, not the University of Oklahoma. What's the other one?
UT?
No, it's Oklahoma.
Oklahoma State?
Yes, Oklahoma State. Gosh, dang. Anyway, I am so impressed because across their campus, many of the professors have a dog there And it's a community thing there on campus. I don't remember the number that they have currently serving, but I think that's really cool because dogs
cool.
really give us a lot of joy, right?
Yeah.
So another way to participate in service, if you think of a formal service activity that while we go through the program today, just let's highlight it, and that will get people to think about those kinds of things. But acts of kindness for sure.
Yeah.
And of course, again, service shows up positively when it comes to health, physical and mental. Less chance of a stroke, less chance of early death, less chance of depression and anxiety.
Yeah. When I was younger, and we were going to go on summer break or Christmas break, mainly Christmas break, my mother would have us go and volunteer at the Red Cross.
Okay.
And for me, that was a big growth thing, gave me lots of confidence interacting with other people that didn't look like me, and I'd highly recommend the Red Cross.
That's a great one. Yeah, for sure. All right. So as we talk about service, we can be bogged down with our own problems and our own concerns, and we can become consumed with that, or we can give. And when we start looking at other people and their needs and how we can help meet some of those needs and be, a neighbor, a friend.
Sometimes ours isn't as bad.
Yeah.
And
it's not, we realize it's not as bad, or it just takes the focus off of it, right?
Right.
So as we commit service, as we do service, it actually helps us see and understand that we have value. Because we're living into that value. We're leaning into that value.
Yeah. And also the empathy, that we have for others and others.
Oh my gosh.
Will have for us. I'm like, that is a win-win.
Yeah. When you said that, my body had a visceral reaction to that.
I see the little tears.
Yeah. I honestly, and you can hear it in my voice, because it brings me to a place, and I think about our country right now and just how we have bought into this harshness, this unforgivingness, this we've accepted this, and I'm not calling anybody out or talking about one party or another party or anything political. I'm just talking about how our hearts,
how the world is
have become a little hard, right?
Yeah.
And it's not that there aren't plenty of exceptions. I experienced plenty of exceptions in my own life, but I'm just concerned that we have made it okay to be mean. We have made it okay to be rude. We have made it okay to be crude. We have made it okay to make fun of people. And I want to see that change.
And so does Dr. McCarthy. Do you remember what he said when he had his firstborn?
Tell me.
He said that it hit him that he was bringing a baby up in this world. And that's exactly what he talked about.
Okay. Yeah.
The cruel world.
So I think, did you mention the stats on, I think you did, about how many people currently participate in some type of service?
Yes.
Okay, great. Great. All right. So then let's talk about purpose.
Yeah. We're left with purpose.
So purpose is the feeling of having an overarching aim or goal in life. And I don't know, for you, do you remember a time, and that goal, that aim, that purpose can change throughout your life. But I'm just curious, do you remember a time as you were growing up where you felt like you had purpose? Or
So I had a really good mentor when I was maybe 14 or 15. Like she owned, her name was Barbara Kerr. She owned this little shop, this little dress shop. And she just needed somebody from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock to close her shop. So I had worked with her in the summer, And then when it came to the school year, she's like, oh, you know what, Anita? She's like, you've been working with me all summer. She goes, I think you can handle the store.
Whoa, dang, really?
Yeah. And I was like, okay.
That was a big vote of confidence in you.
She was like, you know how to count the register. You know what to do. And so I would just run the little store for 2 hours by myself, and I think to me, that was like the best. Like she was a very good mentor to me.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
Wow. And what was her name?
Barbara Kerr.
Barbara Kerr?
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to Barbara Kerr. Barbara Kerr, people like you are making a difference every day. And we're so thankful for you. So thank you for really making a difference in Anita's life.
Yeah.
We appreciate you. So purpose is not the what, but the why, right? That's become a big deal lately, right?
Yeah. The why. Why do you do things, right?
Yeah. What's your why, right? And honestly, it's easy for that to sound cheesy and to kind of blow it off, especially like when there are campaigns around.
Oh, yeah.
What's your why? But
I think your why changes as you get into different stages.
I think so. It can, right?
Yeah. Because I was thinking, well, my why is now, okay, well, I got to be healthy and live longer for my kids.
Right.
But before I had kids, what was my why?
I don't know.
It was a different why. That's what I'm saying, that it could change, in the different stages of your life, right?
For sure.
So you're not stuck to just one thing. It could be a multiple thing.
Yeah, for sure. And you definitely can have multiple whys in different areas of your life. And I think people of true faith, they experience a why that's a pervasive why, a purpose, a motivation of, in their life. And, that's a powerful thing. No matter what religion, denomination, or whatever, but believing that you have been called for a purpose, that your life has meaning because of whatever.
I really like that little part where he talked about the different religions.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And in South African, that was my favorite one.
Okay.
Like, I am because we are.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, that's so awesome.
Say that again.
I am because we are.
I love that.
Yeah. So that was the South African thing that they go by, just like in Christianity.
Love thy neighbor.
Love thy neighbor.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So,
in the Hindi religion, treat each other like the divine or something similar.
Right.
But that South African, I really like the way it was worded.
I love that too.
Yeah.
I want to put that on something and have it so I can see it. Yeah, for sure. All right. So we talked a little bit about purpose. How can we cultivate purpose?
I think really reaching out to young people and giving them an opportunity, like I was given an opportunity. But two, I think of like the young adults in college.
Right.
And how lost they feel,
Yeah.
So giving them purpose as well.
Or letting them, helping them
discover.
I think that's a great word. Discover their purpose. And one of the things that we can do, and all of the information that we're using today, we're springboarding off of Dr. Vivek Murthy's work, right? And the Parting Prescription for America. But some of the suggestions that he made is, by telling stories.
The cultural stories, the folk tales.
Heroes that are not heroes because of necessarily, and I love me so football, but not necessarily because of how many touchdowns they made or, but for the great work that they're doing, for how they help someone.
Yeah.
And then movies, it's important that we watch movies with our kids that have, values and have stories of heroes that are out there doing good so that we can have conversations with them. And then, of course, books and sermons, media. So we want to go ahead.
I was going to say, he really talked about religion, and it doesn't matter what religion you are. So I was a little fascinated in that area where he talks about not only building community there, but also finding purpose there and service. Like you find all three there.
Definitely.
You know,
For sure. In the study, okay, I don't know why I'm doing this today, but I'm having to ask you if you hit some points, because I think in my brain I'm going, I think she said that. Did you talk about the Harvard Graduate School of Education?
I did.
Okay, cool. See, she got to keep me going here.
But I didn't say Harvard. I said Yale. I thought it was Yale.
Okay, well, good. See,
who knows?
That's why
I don't
we're
know.
a good team. It's so Harvard graduates, 58%.
Yeah, I just remember some.
said that they don't feel a sense of purpose. Yeah. So, and, typically, if you are at Harvard, and there are definitely exceptions to this, but oftentimes you've come from wealth, from prestige. Yeah. Now, we've talked about, and let's just kind of review them. So we talked about the triad of fulfillment, relationships, service, purpose,
and leading with love.
And then that core value.
Yeah,
we're going to end that with that core value of the value of love. And I was thinking, when I was reading that, I was thinking about that Coca-Cola song. Don't make me laugh. But I like to teach the world to sing. Do you remember this song?
Yeah.
Perfect Harmony, right? Wow. We need more songs like that.
Let's get back to the subject in it.
That is the subject. It's the value of love. And we need more songs, more books, more stories that really highlight and elevate love.
Yeah.
So
we definitely need more books.
Preach it, sister. Preach it. All right. So, what else we got? Let me see. Oh, okay. Let's talk.
Oh,
go ahead.
Okay. So I was going to mention the thread, the program that Dr. Murthy talked about. So Thread was a program that was at a high school for the ninth graders where they had 4 families mentor one kid. I'm like, how amazing is that?
Yeah.
And so, so one family would mentor one student, and it didn't matter if they needed whatever they needed, it was fulfilled, right?
Right.
But the main thing,
if they needed a ride, if they needed someone to pack their lunch, if they needed mentors, if they needed tutoring,
surrogate parents, basically.
Yeah.
And
I loved it because they could have up to 4. So it wasn't necessarily a burden that one person couldn't handle,
right?
Because there was a partnership, right? And so right now we're talking about some programs that are already existing, things that people are already doing that are bringing relationship, purpose, service. Another one is called Beyond Differences program. And this is another one that's in the school system. I love this one.
I love that one too. I love both of the programs.
Yeah, me too. I so do. So this one is where students get involved in helping, maybe another student who's struggling and being a companion, giving them friendship, because to go ahead and fight that loneliness, that isolation, maybe they give them someone to sit with at lunch, all different kinds of things. So that's a student-led one that's in the school systems.
That is amazing.
And then, of course, we just have individuals that are making a difference in some ways to do that. For example, a book study.
Yeah. I wouldn't, when you said that, I was thinking about this one student. He is from a different country. And, he would make friends with just about any student. And if he had someone that was at lunch, because I watched this at lunch and they didn't have lunch, he would have his hamburger.
Wow.
And they would both eat.
Don't you love that?
Yeah. And he would not take a no. He's like, no, you're getting half my burger. And I thought,
That's
oh my
great.
God, that's such a cool kid.
Yeah,
He was a cool kid.
What a heart.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know his parents are so proud of him.
Oh, yeah.
So proud. Another one is, for example, potlucks. And there was one story that was shared in the parting prescription was a lady, I think she had lost her husband, I think.
Oh, yes. I love that one.
And had, was suffering from some loneliness and some isolation. And so she started a potluck. And she had, a lot of people show up, right?
Yeah.
But of course, everybody's bringing their own. So, and sharing.
She had 91 neighbors show up.
Is that crazy?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
And then out of that came the neighbor's table. So, and I don't know if we have that in this area or not, but I'd be curious to look that up for sure. And that might be something that we can take a part in, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So things that we can do now. So let me see if we're I'm thinking if we kind of missed, I'm thinking back if we missed anything else that we wanted to share. Anything come to mind?
Yeah, I was just going to say, as a parent, for me, I feel like it's so important. We've lost the get to know your kids' friends.
Okay.
I think starting with that, getting to know your kids' friends and knowing kind of what they need, if they need anything. School's fixing to start.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like if you have enough money and you can buy an extra notebook or a spiral or
backpack.
Whatever. Yeah. And if they come over, just hand it to them.
Right.
Yeah.
If you know
and just say,
sense
I
that
bought
there's a
this for
need.
you.
Yeah. How wonderful.
Yeah. Because I think there's a difference in like, oh, I have this extra. No, with intention, like I bought this for you.
I love that. Yeah. I think another thing is, for example, if there's a ministry or a nonprofit that's out there meeting needs, this would be a great time as before school starts. If you've got some clothes in your closet that are nice, but maybe your kids have outgrown it or something like that, this is a really great time to go drop off clothes there, so that.
Or I was thinking when you said that, just even putting it on the Facebook Marketplace.
Okay, like free.
Like I have a size 12 girls. If anyone is in need, please come pick up.
Right. Yeah.
Another
way of watching out for our kids as they begin to start back at school.
Yeah, because everyone's having a hard time, right? With one thing or another.
So things that we can do now. So I love, Dr. Vivek talked about just approaching your day where you're looking for one act of kindness a day, to purposely do at least one act of kindness a day. And I thought that's a great place for me to start. That sounds doable, that I can just purpose each day looking for an opportunity to do one act of kindness.
It's just one thing. One thing.
That can make a big difference.
Yeah.
Another one is to join or start a service project. So in a more formal kind of way. I know there's so many people that have so many incredible ideas. And as we begin to value community and they put those ideas out there, then we can rally around and collaborate, right?
Yeah.
With one another. Commit to gathering and being available to build a relationship. So getting out of the house, getting away from the TV, the computer, the phone, and setting aside, maybe you have a goal of so much time a week. I'm going to go to this one place where I can be around people.
Just even joining a knitting group.
Yeah.
Knitting crochet group. If you are into that kind of thing, like, meeting people there.
Right. Sure. Again, pickleball. If you haven't tried it, it's awesome. I'm trying to think some things that my son will participate in. Rock climbing, right? There are a lot of indoor rock climbing places, outdoor rock climbing places, yoga group.
Yeah,
right?
So many things. Just get out there.
And a lot of these things are free, like meetups that help people match hobbies and interests.
Yes, I was going to say hiking groups.
Yeah, I read about this Hiking Babes. Yeah, that's one of the groups I saw, Hiking Babes.
Get out in nature. Like, there's so many things, to do. So, yes.
Yeah. Government and businesses can do something by, like you use the word intention. You know, a business can be intentional about providing opportunities to build relationship, to do service.
Oh, yeah. Get your employees out there and do some community service. There's so much need.
And that builds a different type of climate that is much more positive. So, yeah. And then our schools. So how can our schools really begin to build and foster this triad of fulfillment?
Really I feel like getting more parent involvement, you know, not only for the students, but also for the teachers. You know, we don't know what our teachers are also struggling with. Who knows? It could be a single parent, maybe needing someone to pick up their kids from after school.
Right.
You know, so there's a lot that can happen in a school.
And beginning to talk about the importance of service. And, you know, one of the things that we like to do is we like to make sure that people are informed. We're not trying to persuade. We're not trying to say you need to do it this way or anything like that, but to build up that
it's out there
information, right? So letting kids know the benefits of service, the benefits of relationship, the benefits of purpose, and what those things are.
It so helps our mental health and our physical health.
And then giving them opportunities, you know, to do those kinds of things.
Yep.
So
all those opportunities that Dr. Haidt talked about that are so good for us, right?
Yeah, yeah. So as you go about your week, this coming week, I want you to think about, or I encourage you to think about, which one of these triads do you want to lean into? And do you want to be purposeful in increasing in your own life? Do you want to build more relationship? Do you want to participate in service? Do you want to enhance and find at a greater degree your purpose? And we encourage you to do that.
Yeah, or add a purpose.
Definitely.
You know, you can have more than one.
For sure. Yeah. So before we head out today, we want to acknowledge the meeting place and Rob Bliss, right?
Yes, our sponsor. Our wonderful sponsor.
Our great sponsor.
Yeah.
Yes. And the meeting place in Carrollton Farmers Branch.
Yes. If you need a place to collaborate and network, it's right here.
And we would love it if you want to comment and tell us what are some things that you're doing in terms of service, or what are some things you're doing to build a relationship.
Yeah.
So, what's our saying?
Own your wellness.
Elevate your life. The content presented in this episode or any others should not be considered therapy and is not prescriptive. If you have questions or concerns about mental health, contact your primary care physician or local mental health provider. The opinions expressed are solely ours and are not representative of our employers or coworkers.
What was that one?